Hey everyone, and welcome back to Token Talk. Now today I want to talk about Jasmy, just to give a quick update of where we're at there and kind of what we're seeing. And ultimately, I mean, not a whole lot new going on, but I did want to give kind of a quick overview of price action, what we're seeing there, what we're seeing in the market, what could potentially be up next for Jasmy. So let's go on ahead and dive right in. So starting out, looking at crypto bubbles, I just want to get a kind of overall read on the market of where we're at today. What we can see is, this is kind of an overall down day. We do have a couple kind of moving up. We can see Jasmy up here only down just less than 0.5%. The silver lining here is, even though Jasmy doesn't pump when the market goes up, it also doesn't drop when the market goes down, which is kind of nice. We will see that here looking at the chart in a second. Also looking at the altcoin season index, we can see we are firmly in Bitcoin season, or not in Bitcoin season, but we're very, very close to Bitcoin season. So this is something that I do think, the fact that we're not seeing altcoins go nuts it's not really that surprising, right? I think this is kind of to be expected. We have basically ever since the end of May kind of pulled back into this heavy Bitcoin season bias, where I would say kind of prior to that we were maybe in more of an altcoin season bias. So until we start to see this flip, I would imagine that we continue to see Bitcoin do relatively well and a lot of these altcoins potentially getting overlooked. And so looking at the Jasmy price, we can kind of see exactly that, right? Ever since the 1st of October, we've been kind of sitting within this super tight zone. But realistically, even kind of before that, we can see even since the beginning of August, we've kind of been in this wider range zone between about 1.8 and 2.4 cents is kind of where we've been sitting. And even recently, we've been kind of sitting between 1.8 and just 2 cents. So there's definitely a lot of consolidation happening here. Overall, this usually is a relatively good thing when we see a lot of a long period of consolidation like this, because usually it does mean when we break out, the breakout is usually pretty aggressive. So this is kind of what we're seeing overall right here, is we are kind of seeing a consolidation and a further consolidation as we kind of move down the line. If we look kind of back out in the past, the biggest thing that I will always continue to point to in the Jasmy chart is we can see prior to this run up, the number or the amount of volume that we were seeing was absolutely nuts, right? And ever since then, we've essentially continued to see volume just trail away, and it continues to keep dropping. And obviously, if you're looking for price appreciation in your project, this is not the way to do it. It's actually the exact opposite way of how to do that. What we do usually want to see is we do want to see volume and interest and eyes on the project overall, and that usually brings more explosive price appreciation. Until we start to see some volume come back, even just kind of this levels, which at this point is kind of 2 or 3x what we're seeing on a consistent basis, I don't think that we're going to see too much in the way of upside. It doesn't seem to me like that's going to happen until we start to see some more volume coming back into the ecosystem. However, I will continue to stress that this is kind of the key zone of liquidity. We are currently hanging on above that. As long as we kind of hang above this, the bottom of this purple box that I've drawn, it's my opinion that Jasmy is going to kind of hold on just fine, and there's really nothing to be too concerned about here. If we were to ever kind of drop and close below this point, I think there would be definitely a pretty large portion of me that would be concerned, because kind of as we've talked about before, the next stop kind of seems to be around this 0.07 or 0.7 cent range, which obviously is a pretty far way to fall from where we're at up here. So just something to consider. This is a level of support that we really, really need to hold, and we really, really should be holding. With the level of or the extended time of consolidation and support that we're seeing here, I do think it's fairly likely that we will hold this. But obviously, if interest and volume and stuff continues to kind of decrease, we may see this break, which would not be a good thing at all. So kind of where we're sitting at right now, things do look fine. If we're looking at the RSI chart, we are kind of sitting kind of right at the middle. We're not undersold, we're not oversold. Things are kind of looking pretty stable from that perspective. If we look at Bollinger Bands, we can't see that the Bollinger Bands have really started to kind of close in here, just because we have seen that consolidation lately. Oftentimes when when the Bollinger Bands start to squeeze like this, we might be in the position to start to see a breakout. We can kind of see here, Bollinger Band squeezed a little bit, boom, we go on a run. Probably if we go back here, we can see Bollinger Band squeeze right here. We go on a huge run. Same type of thing, Bollinger Band squeeze, go on a run, Same thing here, Bollinger Band squeeze, but we actually go to the downside. So, I mean, when Bollinger Band squeeze, it's not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to go up. It just means you're going to go somewhere fairly dramatically is kind of usually what that means. And so as we come back up here, we can see that, these are tighter than kind of what that we've seen in recent history. So it is possible that we do see a pretty aggressive move to the upside. So far, we're just kind of waiting and seeing. If we look at the recent updates on Jasmy, we can see that we haven't seen anything since the end of August, which frankly has been a little bit frustrating as somebody who likes to talk about Jasmy somewhat frequently. They don't really give a lot to talk about. They have some more updates, or I guess more frequent updates on their like X profile and things like that. But overall, I would say just the level of communication coming from the Jasmy team has not been particularly impressive, and does not inspire bullish inspiration from me, or bullish thoughts, or commentary, things like that. Usually when we see this lack of communication, it gives way for FUD to enter the space, right? And I'm not saying that Jasmy has done anything or is doing anything that would warrant that from like a realistic perspective, but that's just what happens, right? The more or the less communication, the less that you're controlling the narrative, the more opportunity there is for, concerns, valid or not, to enter the space. And oftentimes, sometimes it's just investors that are getting bored or scared or whatever because they haven't heard something. That's possible as well. So, overall, I do think that while their lack of communication isn't necessarily like inherently a bad thing, I do think that they could definitely do themselves favors by kind of controlling that a little bit more and having more of an active role in kind of the news and the narrative that is being formed around their coin. Also, I do think more interaction would result in more volume as well, because ultimately my biggest issue that I see with the Jasmy chart currently is not at all the price, it's the volume. And so as soon as we can start picking up more volume, I do think that we will start to see that run being made, which I think would help a lot, of course, for many of us here. So anyway, if you did want to trade on Margex, we do have a link in the description below. There is no KYC and there is no VPN. You can trade Jasmy up to 25x leverage. You can trade Bitcoin up to 100x leverage. There's a lot of different assets that you can trade on Margex. They also have up to a $10,000 deposit bonus. If you do want to check that out, or if you're interested, feel free to check the link in the description and give it a try if that's something you're interested in. Again, as I always say, leverage trading can be risky, and it's not without its fair share of risk. So just make sure you know what you're doing before you get into that. So anyway, if you found the information in this video useful, please do give me a like and subscribe. I apologize that there's not a whole ton of Jasmy news to go on, at least so far, but I do think patience is a virtue. All things, good things come to those who wait. And as long as we don't see anything kind of fundamentally kind of maybe questionable or, not looking great within the Jasmy chart, just sit and wait. And, I think we can do that. I'm happy doing that. And that's what I have been doing so far. Kind of what I've told some people in the comment sections when they've asked. I personally don't view Jasmy as a buy right now, just primarily because of the lack of communication and some of the there's been, I would say, not much effort getting new users introduced to Jasmy. And so, I wouldn't call it a buy, at least right now, but it's definitely a hold. I'm not planning on selling it at any point soon, but that's kind of where I'm sitting at. Obviously, this is not financial advice, so, you need to make your own decisions with that. That's just kind of my opinion as I'm seeing things right now. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.